Happy New Year's, everybody, but also happy birthday, kind of, in Korea. A little confusing, but we'll get right into it. So, just to clear things up, obviously in Korea, everyone has their actual birthday. So, the day they were actually born, they'll celebrate it, they'll have cake. But what is different between the US birthdays and American birthdays is that on your birth date throughout the year, that's not actually the day that you get a year older in Korea. In Korea, everyone gets a year older on New Year's. So we're going to talk about that and then a couple of other New Year's traditions as well in this video. So firstly, with the age thing, a little bit of background on age. When you're born, you're considered a 1 year old, or you're 1 year old. And then on New Year's, everyone gains a year together. So you have situations like my wife, she was born at the end of December, pretty much. And so she was born, and just a few days later, she was a 2-year-old. Now, obviously with babies, just like in the US, when someone asks how old they are, you'll tell them in months because that is more meaningful for babies. But still kind of interesting that you can have a few-day-old baby that's a 2-year-old, right? Age in Korea is super important for a couple of reasons. It's, it determines the way you can even speak to each other, the language you use, the grammar you use. It even determines who you can actually use the word friend with. You can only use the word friend with people who are born the same year as you. It's obviously a more complex idea, and so I'm going to make a whole other video about that, so definitely subscribe if that's something that sounds interesting to you. But yeah, age is super important, and so having everyone gain a year on New Year's together, when you ask someone what their age is, which is one of the first questions you'll ask someone when you meet them. If you meet someone new, one of the first questions you ask is what year were you born, or how old are you? You can ask it either way, and it means the same thing, right, in Korea, because you need to know are they above me or below me in age, because that's going to determine the way that we actually interact and communicate with each other. So age is super important for those reasons. Now, there are a couple of exceptions to that age rule of being on, how old you are determined just by the year you were born. And that's really just those first few months of a new year. Someone who's born in those months can kind of say that they're a year older sometimes. They have this concept of kind of an early or a fast, X year. And part of that is so that they can still be friends with the people that they're going to school with. School starts in March in Korea, and so kids who are born in January, February, and sometimes those first little bits of March will be in the same grade as the people who were born the year before them. And so there'll be these early, 95, or they'll say, I'm an early 96, to mean that they're really like a 95, and that they're friends with people who were born in 95 if they say I'm an early 96. It's not, a really hard and fast rule on exactly when that date cutoff is. So it's kind of just up to the person to determine if they're, an early or a fast, whatever year they were born in. A couple of other New Year's traditions. One, when you do gain your year, everyone on New Year's, it's tradition to eat a bowl of rice cake soup. And so when you eat that bowl of soup, that's when you gain your 1 year. Obviously, New Year's is a holiday and people get together and they'll eat lots of food. And so kind of a funny way that they'll ask, how much did you eat, is they'll say, how many years did you gain this year, right? So how many bowls of soup did you eat? Other traditions in the US, obviously we stay up until midnight and we'll count down to midnight and, scream Happy New Year's. For Korea, it's really a lot more important to watch the sunrise on that first day. A lot of people will climb up mountains to go to kind of the tops of mountains and watch the sunrise all together rather than get together and count down till midnight. They do have things kind of like how we have the ball dropping in New York. They've got this big bell in Korea that typically the president and some other political leaders will go and ring in the new year. But really, I think the biggest difference is that that age thing that I talked about. So definitely, if you have any questions about age or really anything about Korean culture, living in Korea, feel free to leave those in the comments. And if this video is helpful or entertaining, definitely give me a like, and please subscribe if you're looking for more Korean content.